Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and me. I welcome all of you back to another Rage video where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are now on to song number 5 of apparently the top 50 worst metal songs ever. This was just a random list I found on metalarchives.com forums, and I honestly do not even know why there's a Manowar song on this list. I honestly could not begin to tell you. And this is, again, a pretty interesting one for me personally because it's been a very, very long time. I think the last time I remember ever talking about Manowar was when I finished Triumph and Steel. One of the absolute, I think it was either Master of the Wind or... Yeah, I think Master of the Wind was the last one we took a look at. And I will get back to doing that album again one day because it's honestly one of the best I think they've ever done. But then again, I'm pretty, new to really, doing a lot of Manowar. Still the best band, in my opinion, to ever come out of New York City. Prove me wrong, because I don't understand. Again, if you're wondering why this is here, I honestly cannot tell you. But what I can tell you is that we're going to have a very, very good time in figuring out. Now, if you are very unfamiliar or very unaccustomed to Manowar, they are an American heavy metal band from New York City. And their style of music has been, I would describe as more symphonic, but they're also very, very, they embrace the ideas of knighthood, chivalry, bravery, the hero's journey, tales throughout history. And I think that's absolutely, it's the sort of thing I absolutely dream of, because I've done many, many stuff throughout the years, from Sabaton to Black Sabbath, but it's always good to have a balance between the two here and there. And by far and away, it's always good to have breaks between doing stuff, especially for Manowar. But what better time to get back into it? Now, if you see these guys right here, I mean, it tells you just about everything you possibly might need to know. Because if you know anything about Triumph and Steel, about the guy on the front who's wielding the sword and the axe, well, anyone who tells you what the meaning of behind that guy on the cover is, that tells you just about everything you need to know about the sort of messages and the feelings of being a true warrior really are in the eyes of Manowar. So let's see what we got. No more. That's enough stalling. So, Violence and Bloodshed in 3, 2, 1, and... Driving like a man. I must admit, that's a brilliant way to close that out by having the entire instrumental just be like literally 90 seconds in length, just so it can close it out. And I also like the fact that the solo, it mimics the sirens, the gunfire, the cannon blasts that we heard in the beginning. In fact, speaking of, it's a very different sort of way for Manowar to open up a song, because I can't really remember off the top of my head if there's ever been a Manowar song that actually starts off like that with mostly sound effects, sirens, and blasts. It sounded almost like the beginning to Blockbuster by The Sweet, because that starts off with a police siren as well, for those who do remember that song. But yeah, honestly, that's like... I'm just going to say this right now. I absolutely... I really liked Violence and Bloodshed. It's not up to the sort of standard, maybe not to the standard that I like associate with some of Manowar's, because trust me, when Manowar are like at their best, there's no way you could like describe it to anyone else. But I will say this, in terms of musicianship, this is among one of the very strong cases, because hey, if there's one thing you could absolutely give Manowar credit for, they are absolutely a metal group. I mean, these guys right here, Eric Adams and what's his face, Carl Logan, Joel DeMeo, and I don't know if one of them's meant to be Ross, the boss, but these guys like dress like friggin' Rambo characters condensed down to action figures, and I think it's really cool. I also like, for some strange reason, that going with the idea of how awesome the solo was, it does, again, it brings me into the mind of some things like Death Angel, Testament, Exodus, and how it sounds very urban, sort of like the sort of thing that almost would belong in maybe an arcade game, like maybe, I don't know, maybe Castlevania or Street Fighter, something like that. It's really, really good, and I absolutely have got no issue with that whatsoever. And again, you have to understand, is like, coming from the perspective of someone who hasn't listened to Manowar for a while now, that was just so refreshing, and it felt good, and I, honest to God, hope tomorrow I can get some more of Manowar down my throat, because not bad for a 35-year-old song. In fact, that is not bad at all. So in case you're wondering, why exactly is this even on the list at all? But let me just give you the description that they give for Violence and Bloodshed. Manowar is not the sanest band you'll ever meet, but this is pushing it, even for them. Sure, they've done cheesier, but comparing the fight for metal to the Vietnam War is pretty tasteless. I don't know. I think some people have got some very strong opinions about the Vietnam War. In fact, maybe Eric Adams knew some guys. Well, maybe his dad knew some guys who never came back from Vietnam. I'm sure Joey DeMeo would have had more luck finding metal mercenaries to go back to the Southeast Asian jungles with him by putting an ad in a Soldier of Fortune magazine, rather than Kerrang! Yeah, if you're wondering, I think this guy has just a bit of an issue with... This guy strikes me as the sort of person who will find faults with literally everything, just because it's rather say what's bad, negative, than say what's actually good about it. But to the Violence and Bloodshed's defense, it's not really brought up all that much, and the ending is so strong. You don't really like you don't really notice it all that much. So out of five songs we've done so far, the only one I kind of like just thought was kind of mediocre was Bible Basher. But Violence and Bloodshed, Night Jumps Queen, Road Mutants, and 31 Flavors have been have really sort of like surpassed my expectations in not the sort of ways I imagined it would. And unfortunately, maybe with what's coming up next, we might get into sort of like this slightly sort of things that I'm almost certain we're going to make this list anyway. So let's see what comes next, eh? So I hope all of you guys have enjoyed Violence and Bloodshed by Manowar. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Violence and Bloodshed for yourselves. And I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care and have a very, very good afternoon.